There's a new street fighter on your windowsill. The weapon is peace, the word is chill.
Hello there, Marvel Legends, and welcome to another episode of Displaying Model Behaviour. You know, sometimes I say hello gang, and sometimes I say hello Marvel Legends, and Marvel Legends makes sense today because we're going to get out a whole bunch of figures, because I want to talk about Sinister War. Yep, there is a new, not a new series, but a new storyline coming in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man, which has been hinted and teased at. We've had some big promo images come out, and it looks really cool, and I want to see where this is going. So there is one big promo image which has been drawn by my favorite Spider-Man artist, Mark Bagley. Chef's kiss, mwah! And it features a lot of characters, namely, of course, Peter Parker Spider-Man himself, who I love having in this like inverted pose. I always think this is kind of cool. So what is Sinister War all about? That's what we want to know. So it's written by Nick Spencer, and he's the current Spider-Man writer, and he has a real kind of, not hit and miss, but like he has his A stories and he has his B stories, which is handy for me because I will buy the A stories when they're released and I will leave the B stories for Marvel Unlimited. Works out pretty well. Sometimes that pays off. When I do that technique for Venom, I get to read King in Black. Awesome. Unfortunately, when I did that technique with Spider-Man, I ended up reading Last Remains, which was... it wasn't bad. Last Remains wasn't bad. It just didn't go anywhere or do anything. And they were like, all your questions will be answered. And that's just the most comic booky thing to say. When what they mean is, we're going to answer one question, and in doing so, open up a whole bunch more and leave you completely unsatisfied. Thanks, Marvel. Anyway, we're now moving into what will be Sinister War, starting in July. And we have a promo image of what is Dr. Octopus's Sinister Six and the Vulture's Sinister Six. Now, this is a weird kind of combination situation that has come about from a bunch of different things. So for Doc Ock, he is in a funny place right now in the Marvel Universe. And we have not seen this Dr. Octopus, really. We haven't properly seen him for literally hundreds of issues. We're talking over 15 years or so since we last saw this Dr. Octopus. Maybe less than that, but still, it was in one of the big, 100 anniversary issues of Amazing Spider-Man where we first got dying Doc Ock, where he was in his like self-containment life support suit, and he was dying for about 200 issues. He was dying until finally he died. But then he was, well, there's a whole story behind that. So he swaps bodies with Peter Parker, becomes a superior Spider-Man, then he lets Peter have his body back, then the Jackal clones him a regular fat Dr. Octopus body, then he upgrades that to like a body of his own design, and he takes the name of Edi-Toy-rial, and then Mephisto, I hate Mephisto in Spider-Man stories. Mephisto makes a deal with him where he's like, you're brain damaged, and you've always been brain damaged since you had your arm accident. I will put you back into your original body without the brain damage, and we'll see if you are actually a good or an evil person. Was all the evil you did because you suffered brain damage? Let's find out. And we haven't seen Doc Ock since then, so we don't know if he is good or bad or what. I always thought that storyline was kind of stupid because when his body was cloned, it wouldn't have been cloned with brain damage, so we know what Doc Ock is like. But I hate stories with Mephisto, and I hate lazy writing, and that was a little synergy of both of them there. Really loved that. And then the writer who killed off the Edi-Toy-rial superior Spider-Man character, like when you're reading it, you're like, ugh, this is obviously Marvel mandating that we can only have one Spider-Man and we have to get rid of Superior and they want to bring back Dr. Octopus. And then the writer does an interview where he's like, no, there wasn't a mandate or anything. I just thought it would be cool to bring back Dr. Octopus and kill off Superior Spider-Man. I'm like, dick move! Who people really liked. I was about to say who asked for that. Maybe people asked for Doc Ock back, but no one hated Superior Spider-Man, I don't think. He was a fun, interesting, different character, and he was different enough from Spider-Man that it didn't negate Spider-Man by having Superior Spider-Man. It was a fun counterbalance between the two of them when they were interacting in Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon. Oh, that made great chemistry, so much fun. Anyway, long story short, we have Doc Ock here, and we don't know if he's on the side of the angels or good or bad or what. It's a really complex character. And on the other side, let's see where I put them, we have the Vulture, Adrian Toomes. And this is interesting because obviously these guys were buddying up. These guys were the Sinister Six, or, founding members of the Sinister Six originally, but now they've said in the press release for this story, it is a war. It's not, sinister villains of Spider-Man going to war against Spidey. It is Doc Ock Sinister Six versus the Vultures. And this is also interesting because it incorporates, thank you, a whole bunch of different characters that have not been part of this team before. So that's really interesting. So for Doc Ock's team, we got a few familiar faces and some new ones that you wouldn't associate with the Sinister Six. So for Doc Ock, we have the Sandman, who is classic Sinister Six. Absolutely, from the very first appearance, Sandman was there, one of Spidey's earliest villains, and a great combination. What was so good about the Sinister Six was the diversity in their powers made them really, really interesting. Now, what's also interesting with Doc Ock's side is the characters who are conspicuous by their absence. In the promo image, at least, I couldn't see any pictures of Electro, couldn't see him, or Mysterio. So maybe there'll be a reason why they're not there, or maybe they just want to shake things up a bit. So also we have Kraven as well. Kraven is pictured, and again, they didn't really say these are the teams, but at the same time, you have characters on Doc Ock's side. I forgot this is not a level table. We had characters on Doc Ock's side of the page and characters on the Vultures, so you can kind of assume what direction they're going in. Now then, also in particular, someone mentioned, I think it mentioned in the article, that Doc Ock may also be influenced by, I've glued these and they still fall out. Doc Ock may be influenced by Kindred. So, the smaller one fell out as well. Well, son of a biscuit. I'll deal with that later. I hate these wings so much. Falcon, never fall out. The Falcon wings, they stay in like glue. It's like they designed these wings for the Vulture, and they were like, this is going to make people mad. Let's just tweak them a little bit. Because Falcon's ones, they ain't going to let you down. Again, Falcon's not going to let you down. He's Captain America now, don't you know? I enjoyed that series finale. The whole series itself was kind of like, it was fine, but the finale was decent enough. Although that Flag Smasher girl was just a waste of time. Anyway, what was I saying? No, I've lost my train of thought. Either way, Kindred, there we go. So Kindred might be manipulating Doc Ock, which is kind of a get out of jail free card. So they can be like, we're going to use Doc Ock as a villain, but he's not really villainous because it's Kindred. I really hate Kindred. At first I thought Kindred was kind of cool, but I didn't like all the mystical hell type stuff because that's not what Spider-Man's about. Spider-Man's about real world science type stuff. He's not about demons and angels and that bullshit, but it is what it is. So anyway, we're making up these teams here. So also, where did I put? I see where the Vultures are, the wing has gone. I'll get that. We also have the Rhino. Say it with me. It's the Rhino! The only good memorable thing from Spider-Man 2. I'm not saying the Robo Rhino was good, but just Paul Giamatti is always wonderful. So we have the Rhino on the Vultures team because now you can start to see the way this is building. This ain't your Sinister Six. This is the Savage Six. So it's the Sinister Six versus the Savage Six. So not really Sinister War so much. I guess the two Sinister guys are feuding with each other, but anyway, the reason why these are the Savage Six are because this team was originally foreshadowed way back in the pages of Hunted, which I did a video on many moons ago. So we also have Scorpion here as well. So rather than being just plain sinister, these guys are savage because they are all animal themed, and that is what the Hunted storyline was all about, which it makes sense we got Kraven on the other side here because in Hunted, Kraven the Hunter rounded up all of the animal themed villains in the Marvel Universe, or in New York at least, and kind of put them into a game reserve in New York in Central Park, which did not endear himself to the Vulture. And the Vulture really had a chance to shine in that story. He kind of rounded up and rallied all the villains to work together to escape, but actually it was like classic Vulture because he was just using them, manipulating them so that he could survive. It was some nice stuff. But then at the end of that story, we had like a couple of pages, even just maybe one page, where Vulture's like, now that I've got you all together, it seems that there's certain things savage people like us can do. You mean like work together and stuff, is what I mean. Don't make it sexy. We're just doing crime, is what I mean. Anyway, that might or might not have happened, but there was still a splash page with all of these guys, and I was like, oh, we might get a thing. And 2 years later, we're getting a thing, and I love that. I love foreshadowing and long-term storytelling. Like, if you ask my girlfriend what is like my two biggest turn-ons, she would go, well, obviously foreshadowing and long-term storytelling. It's true, I'm a sucker for them. That's why I love pro wrestling when it's good. And that's why WWE is toilet water and AEW and New Japan are normally pretty freaking good, because they go, this is a story we want to tell over a long period of time. And then they do it, unless people get injured and leave and kind of throws a spanner in the works. Anyway, what is also kind of interesting and sort of throws a, speaking of spanner in the works, is that on Doc Ock's side, we have, at least in the picture, the reptile. What am I talking about? I've got Mortal Kombat on the brain. Lizard. We have Lizard, who is not going to stand for me. But yeah, and that's interesting because Lizard played a huge part in the Hunted storyline as well. And what he actually did was he was kidnapped by Kraven. So it's surprising that he's on the same team as Kraven, unless there is more manipulations going on here. Because also at the moment, Lizard is kind of a good guy, but you know, you can never quite tell with the Lizard. So it's a tricky one to put your finger on. Just gonna move Spidey over here. And yeah, so the Lizard, that's gonna be kind of a wild card maybe. Wild card, bitches! So that's kind of an interesting sort of dynamic. And also this Kraven now is not the original Kraven the Hunter. He is dead now. He died in Hunted. So this guy is actually Kraven Jr. This is, I have no idea what his first name is, but he has completely adopted the name of Kraven the Hunter. He's the son of Kraven, was actually kind of tricked by Kraven into killing him. It was a whole long story where the spider had to die. He had to die at the hands of the spider. It was a whole thing. Anyway, he, shaved his beard into like the Kraven style. He cut his hair. He took the name Kraven, just so we as readers could be like, oh, okay, it's still Kraven. Now, a fun one thrown onto the Vulture's side is King Cobra. Man, I'm running out of space here. King Cobra, who I really have not read anything of at all, but he could be kind of fun. He's bright and colorful, and I just saw him appear in the Hunted storyline, and he was one of the main people at the very end, when Vulture was giving his little speech to the guys that he's rounded up. King Cobra was there, and that's actually what encouraged me to get that figure, because I was like, ooh, King Cobra is kind of sort of a Spider-Man villain now. I obviously have to have him, which then made me think, well, I obviously have to have the entire Serpent Society now, because we know that's how Marvel Legends work. But yeah, so that is what we have for Vulture's team at the moment. Oh, I can finally get his other wing. So yeah, that's the Vulture's team. There are two people in the pictures that are missing from this team, which we desperately need in Marvel Legends form. Hasbro, are you listening? You better be. Come on. I sincerely hope Hasbro are subscribed to this channel. So we do not have Stegron. Stegron is there, and a Stegron figure, oh, that would be so much fun. There is an old 90s Stegron, which still holds up so well. It looks so cool. You can find it on eBay. He's not cheap, but he's not insanely expensive. But again, he's out of my price range for now. But he's a badass figure. Big dinosaur man, and he comes with all these like restraints on him as well. Looks really cool. So Stegron should be there. And also a really easy one, I'm surprised we haven't got yet, is Tarantula. So Tarantula is pictured in the Savage Six as well. Again, makes sense. Stegron, animal themed. Tarantula, animal, insect. It makes sense. So that would round out the Savage Six, and rounding out Dr. Octopus's Sinister Six, taking the place of either Electro or Mysterio, who are not pictured there, is Hydro Man. And I haven't had the chance to get Hydro Man out in ever. When was the last time I ever used Hydro Man? But I really dig this figure. Some people don't like it. Yeah, he could have had more water effects, but for what he is, for a basic figure, I think he's really cool. So Hydro Man is there. So maybe we'll see the Mud Monster again, considering we have Hydro Man and Sandman reunited, and it feels so good and muddy. There we go. So we have our guys in place here. Now then, an interesting point which they did make when doing interviews about this story was, of course, so far, Dr. Octopus's team only has 5 members. This ain't a Sinister Six. Even I can do that basic arithmetic. So the question is, who is the 6th member on Team Puss? And the question that a lot of people are asking is it Spider-Man? That could be a big possibility, especially the way that Spidey is kind of positioned in the promotional artwork. It looks like maybe he is kind of gravitating over to the Dr. Octopus side. So perhaps, maybe, possibly, that might play into it. Or it could be a complete red herring. Because also there is other promotional artwork as well, which features all sorts of different villains in there. And goodness only knows, I ain't got the time, I ain't got the space to get all these guys out. But the image featured, I noticed Jack-O-Lantern was in there, White Rabbit as well, and she featured in the Hunted storyline too, so it makes sense for her to be on the Savage Six, although that would throw the numbers out with Stegron and Tarantula. But, you know, I'm just spitballing here, all right? So these are the teams that we have. Savage Six, the Sinister War, it kicks off in July, and it looks like it should be a good time. This is kind of a get hype moment for me, because since Sins Remains ended, I've been a bit, I'm just going to wait for Marvel Unlimited to read my Spider-Man. But now that we're getting some classic Spidey villains, we're getting the return of Dr. Octopus, and best of all, we're getting Mark Bagley doing the artwork, who, I gotta say, actually, he doesn't have his 90s flair. He doesn't, maybe he's not hungry anymore, you know? His artwork is still good, but it doesn't look like I'm used to seeing his Spider-Man look like. It's still good, but it's like a basic pizza as opposed to like a gourmet pizza with all the toppings like it was in the 90s. But I'll still look past that because I'll always have my nostalgia goggles on for Mark Bagley. And folks, that is the setup and the hype moment for Sinister War. What do you think is going to be involved in Sinister War? Are you excited for it? Or do you not read the comics? Do you don't care about these kinds of things? And also, this was a different kind of video because I'm not throwing in lots of crazy edits and all that kind of thing. This is more of just a kind of a video blog. Or vlog, if you will. Someone should patent that name. But yeah, I might do more of these where I basically just like sit and talk and like, you know, shoot the you-know-what, and we kind of have some fun just chatting and speculating about what might be coming in movies, comics, toys, action figures, video games, all that kind of stuff. We have a little powwow. That's what it is. It's a model behavior, David displays model behavior powwow. I'll workshop that name. We'll come up with something a bit catchier. But guys, thanks so much for watching. I've rambled on for far too long. Until next time, keep displaying model behavior.
Cheers.